It was an evening like any other, the kind that passes without leaving a trace in memory. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in warm hues of orange and gold, and the neighborhood settled into its familiar rhythm. Birds sang their last songs of the day, and the distant hum of cars on the main road carried softly through the air. She returned home from work carrying the exhaustion of a long day on her shoulders, expecting the comfort of routine. The familiar click of her keys, the soft light spilling into her apartment, the gentle ticking of the clock on the wall. She was not prepared for the knock. It was firm, deliberate, and unlike anything she had heard before. It resonated through the hallway in a way that demanded attention, making her pause in the doorway. At first she thought it might be a neighbor, perhaps a delivery she hadn't anticipated. But as the seconds stretched, her instincts whispered that this was something different. Something urgent. When she opened the door, a stranger stood there. Tall, composed, and carrying an aura of calm confidence. The person's gaze met hers with an intensity that made her heart skip. "I'm here because I believe I'm your sibling," the stranger said. The words hung in the air, fragile yet insistent. For a moment she simply stared, disbelief rooted deep within her. A sibling? She had always believed she knew her family completely. Every story, every memory, every secret. Or at least every secret that mattered. But this stranger, holding themselves with a quiet authority, suggested otherwise. Her mind raced, attempting to reconcile the impossible with the familiar. The stranger handed her a worn envelope, its edges frayed, the paper yellowed with age. Inside were photographs she had never seen, some faded with time, others sharp and clear. There were letters as well, addressed to her, each word carefully preserved. As she sifted through them, a strange familiarity tugged at her memory, as though the contents were echoing stories she had almost forgotten. The stranger began to recount a story, each detail weaving a tapestry that felt both impossible and achingly real. A childhood split by circumstances she had never known, of parents torn apart by events left unspoken, of misunderstandings and mistakes that had kept them apart for decades. Each word chipped away at her skepticism, leaving her heart caught between fear, disbelief, and curiosity. The days that followed were a blur of restless nights and sleepless mornings. She could not stop thinking about the stranger, the letters, the photographs. Memories she had long ignored resurfaced, old photographs and keepsakes taking on new significance. Every fragment of her past seemed suddenly relevant, a puzzle piece she had failed to recognize until now. When she finally confronted her family, the tension was immediate. Faces once familiar felt strange as she asked questions that had never seemed necessary before. Her mother's voice trembled, a mixture of fear and confusion coloring every word, while her father remained silent, avoiding her gaze as though looking away could make the truth disappear. Secrets long buried began to surface, awkwardly and painfully, in fragments that demanded attention. She learned piece by piece that there had indeed been a child, separated under circumstances that no one had wished to discuss openly. Hospital visits, whispered conversations, distant relatives. Memories once insignificant now revealed themselves as crucial threads in a larger story. Each revelation drew her deeper into a past she had only partially known, leaving no room to retreat to the comfort of ignorance. The stranger was patient, persistent, and meticulous. Letters written decades ago, photographs capturing fleeting moments from childhood, small tokens that echoed memories she had only vaguely remembered. They all painted a picture that seemed increasingly undeniable. Each interaction, every shared story, brought them closer to a truth that had long been hidden. Yet doubt lingered, insistent as if testing her resolve. Could this really be true, or was she being drawn into an elaborate fabrication? Determined to know, she began her own investigation. She contacted old friends, reached out to distant relatives, and searched through records that had long been forgotten. Every piece of evidence she uncovered seemed to confirm what she had feared and hoped for in equal measure. Memories fell into place, forming a narrative that aligned perfectly with the stranger's story. The fragments of her childhood, once isolated and meaningless, now shimmered with clarity. The process was exhausting and emotional. There were moments of joy, moments of despair, and moments where the weight of the past felt almost unbearable. She would spend nights staring at the photographs and letters, reading them again and again, searching for answers in the spaces between the words. Every discovery brought a mixture of relief and apprehension, as though each truth revealed also carried its own shadow. Her interactions with her family grew more complicated. Old tensions surfaced, fueled by the shock of long-hidden truths. Conversations that had once been routine now carried the weight of history. Questions that had seemed trivial before now demanded answers, and answers brought with them new questions, each more challenging than the last. Relationships were tested, boundaries redrawn, and hearts opened in ways she had never imagined possible. Gradually, the pieces began to align. The stranger's story, the letters, the photographs, the memories, they all converged, forming a coherent picture that could no longer be denied. The realization was overwhelming. The stranger truly was her sibling, separated by circumstances beyond anyone's control, kept apart by misunderstandings and the silence of those who had tried to protect her from a painful truth. The reunion was a moment she would never forget. Tears flowed freely, mingling with laughter and whispers of disbelief. The embrace was more than a greeting. It was a release of decades of longing, a bridge over years of absence. For a brief moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, acknowledging the profound significance of that single human connection. Even as joy and relief washed over them, there was a lingering awareness of what had been lost. Years spent apart could never be reclaimed, and memories of loneliness and absence would always remain a part of their story. Yet the reunion was also a beginning, a chance to forge new connections, to rebuild relationships, and to embrace a family now made whole in ways previously unimaginable. Life slowly adjusted to this new reality. The presence of a sibling brought both joy and complexity. Simple daily interactions, shared meals, casual conversations, moments of laughter, were imbued with layers of meaning that had previously been absent. Old wounds were acknowledged, and slowly hearts began to heal. Trust, once fragile and tentative, grew stronger as bonds deepened and memories were shared. She reflected often on the fragility of life and the power of secrets. How easily moments pass unnoticed, how one hidden truth can change the course of countless lives, how the ordinary can become extraordinary with a single revelation. The knock at the door, the stranger, the envelope, the letters. Each had seemed small in the moment, yet together they had altered the trajectory of her life forever. Through the weeks and months that followed, she learned to navigate the complexity of this newly expanded family. Conversations that had once been routine became richer, filled with shared history and newly discovered connections. Laughter and tears intertwined in ways that made her heart ache with both sorrow and joy. She discovered that healing was not instantaneous, that forgiveness and understanding were processes, and that the bonds of family, once restored, required care and attention to flourish. There were days when the weight of the past felt heavy, when memories of absence and lost time pressed upon her. But there were also moments of triumph, of discovery, of connection that made every difficulty worthwhile. Each story shared, each secret revealed, and each memory reclaimed brought a sense of completion that had long been missing. She realized that the stranger at her door had brought more than just answers. They had brought perspective. Life was unpredictable, full of twists and turns that could never be anticipated. One ordinary evening had become the fulcrum of transformation, proving that the unexpected could carry the deepest truths. She understood finally that people are shaped not only by the experiences they remember but also by the ones they never knew had occurred. In time, the family began to thrive in ways that had once seemed impossible. The sibling, once a stranger, became a central presence in her life. Shared meals, holidays, and quiet evenings together carried a significance they had never held before. Conversations deepened, bonds strengthened, and the sense of family, once incomplete, grew more resilient with every passing day. And yet, even amid the happiness, there was always an awareness of what had been lost. The years that could not be recovered, the moments that had been missed, and the memories that had been shaped by absence remained a quiet undercurrent. But those losses were balanced by the new beginnings, the reconnections, and the love that had finally found its way home. She learned to cherish the ordinary moments, knowing that extraordinary truths could lie hidden within them. The knock at the door, the envelope, the letters, and the stranger had been catalysts for change, reminders that life is never as predictable as it seems. She discovered that family is not defined solely by time spent together but also by the enduring connections that survive separation, silence, and misunderstanding. In the end, she came to understand that secrets, though sometimes painful, can carry the power to heal, to connect, and to transform. The day that had begun like any other had changed her life in ways she could never have imagined. It had taught her the importance of curiosity, of persistence, and of the courage to seek the truth, no matter how uncomfortable or improbable it might seem. As the sun set once more, casting its warm glow across the street, she felt a quiet sense of gratitude. Life had delivered a twist that had reshaped her family, her understanding of herself, and her place in the world. She embraced the future with hope, knowing that while the past could never be rewritten, the present and the days ahead were hers to shape. The day a secret was revealed had changed everything, leaving behind a family more complete, a heart more open, and a life forever altered. And in that realization she understood something profound. That even the smallest moments, the quietest knocks, and the most unlikely strangers can carry the deepest truths, the ones that define who we are and who we are meant to become.